Hello. I'm about to throw out some tires, and I thought I might take this chance to do a quick review. I ride extremely hard terrain at Westpoint, Tennessee. I put in a tubeless on the 250, and we're running on both the KTM 250 4-stroke. We're running a Geomax AT81 with the tubeless system in it, and extreme low air pressure in this, but are running air. And the same thing on the KTM 300. We're trying out these tires because they're doing away with the 739, and the Geomax is supposed to, this Geomax 80 series is supposed to replace that. I'm not quite as happy with it, and I'll tell you why in just a second. On the front, we had started running the hard terrain Geomax 71, and here's the reason for that. I just mounted up one of these on the 525, and I'm running the tubeless system on it as well. But this is the Geomax 70 series. This would be the hard terrain, and this one is tubeless front and rear on the 525. And here's why. Here is a Bridgestone that I was running, and you can see the Bridgestone. I have just destroyed this Bridgestone. Most of my riding is at Westpoint, Tennessee, and it's mostly chert and hard clay, a lot of gravel, but just destroying this tire. It's worn, but the knobs are the problem, and it is just ripping the knobs off. There's sections on here that even though the tire is well worn, I mean, I'm not going to deny that it's a worn front tire, but the side knobs just ripping off is a real problem. This is a Geomax 50 series, the intermediate front. Look at this. Here you have a section. Look at that section. From here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 knobs ripped off the side in just that one section. And this is not a very old tire. You can still see the paint lines on this tire. Mounted this up and enjoyed this tire pretty well. I mean, I think it provided okay traction. Not great. I would definitely say it was okay traction. Had several spills with the front tire washing out on this tire. And then here is the Perelli rear, and it's the MT16 Perelli. And now look what the 525 does to this tire in extremely hard terrain. And these tires, they were not just, that is just destroyed this tire. And this is, even though this should be an intermediate terrain tire, yeah, at Westpoint maybe we run into mud a little bit, some loam here, very little loam, but some good black dirt here and there. A lot of loose, a lot of pea gravel, but a lot of hard rock. So it's not far from being a relatively intermediate condition, but just destroys that tire. Now I went to a Geomax hard front. This is this is really a couple hard days. Now, I'm not as sold on the tubeless front tire because it creates 2 points of failure. You can see this tire is flat right now, and that's a problem. Now, the slime, there's the hole right here, and I'm going to have to plug that. the tubeless creates 2 points of failure because you have air inside the tire, but then you also have the tubeless valve that holds 100 pounds here. This did not fail, and the tubeless on the front, I will give it a thumbs up because when the tire punctured, and this is a pretty good puncture right here, with this puncture, I rode this tire probably another 15 miles on hard trail at race pace. So even though the tire was flat, it will not allow the tire to debead. And you get excessive roll with a flat front tire, but it doesn't debead, and you can still not only ride it out, you can race it out. So that part I do give it a thumbs up. I just don't know, I'm just not 100% sure. This puncture, I'm just not 100% sold on the front because I've created 2 points of failure. 2 places I can lose air with the tire. And I would encourage you to look at the tubeless. It doesn't work like you think it would work. It does not seal against the rim. It only seals against the tire. The tubeless would sit inside the tire and push out here, and so you're only air sealing from the inside of the tire to the sidewall of the tire to the sidewall of the tire. So it doesn't, people always ask about, doesn't it leak around the valve stems? Well, it doesn't seal there. It only seals from the side of the tire to the side of the tire. And it pushes out super hard. So, like I said, this tire's been run a long way at high race pace in really bad conditions. And so that part, I will give it a thumbs up on the front. But the jury's still out. This is the first test on this tire and tube. The tire seems like it's held up pretty well. I did probably 60 miles or more at really high speeds, a good race pace. I'm probably a good mid-pack B guy, I guess, really. So I'm not quite an A. Too good for B, not quite an A. So not good enough to run an A class, but too good to run a B. So this tire right here did pretty well. I'm not real unhappy with it, other than the fact I did have a flat. And I'm not sure if it's a puncture or a pinch, but so I'm going to have to plug that. But that's the beauty of the tubeless, is I can just plug it, and I rode it flat. If I'd had an inner tube on there and had that same puncture, maybe it would have punctured a heavy-duty tube. Maybe it wouldn't have punctured a heavy-duty tube. I don't know. But so I did have a flat, but I was able to ride it out. On the rear, I will give this tire and tubeless 2 humongous thumbs up. This is the only way to go as far as I'm concerned. Run the tubeless in the rear. And this is a Dunlop Desert, and it's a 739. And I'm running a really wide, I'm running the 120, but this is the Dunlop 739 Desert AT. And this, like I said, is, as far as I'm concerned, the only way to go. This tire has no air in the tire. It's completely flat, although it's so stiff that it almost will not compress. The sidewalls of this tire are just super stiff. Running the tire completely flat with the tubeless system, 100 pounds of air in the tubeless, no air or 1 or less pounds of air in. A lot of times I will just put enough air in it that it'll register on the gauge, but pretty much I don't even check it. I check the tubeless before every ride race, and I like it if a little air will come out, but I really don't care. What that does is the tubeless makes the sidewalls even stiffer. Terrible tire to mount. Worst tire to mount I've ever mounted. But great traction. Unbelievable. If you're running a trials tire but lose traction in the mud or in the slick, this is definitely your answer, because this tire, even this tire has, I don't know, literally hundreds of miles on it. I've run at least 4 races on this tire. I've done a 2-day Westpoint ride. No knobs are broken off. The tire is worn. It's well worn. I'm still getting terrific traction out of this tire. In the mud, in the rock, wherever I'm at, I'm getting good traction. I like the closer spacing. You can see the replacement Desert tire. These tires, both of these tires have good wear on them, and they're wearing very well, but the knob spacing is very far apart. On the 525, I like a little closer knob spacing. And this tire is replacing this tire. But you can still buy this tire if you try. And as far for my money, this tire has held up. Dare I say the Maxxis Max Cross IT was the best wearing tire I've ever had. I ran those for years. Great tire. The price went up a little bit, but still one of the better tires that you can buy for value and fair traction. This tire blows it away if you're running no air in it. If you're running 12 or 14 pounds of air in this tire, I think that you're going to have a horrible time on loose or loam when you get it out of its element. It's supposed to be a desert tire. So, but with no air pressure in it, it makes it soft and supple, and when you hit a rock, it'll curve into the rock and pull you over the rock. It won't rip the knobs off though, and it doesn't. It's cushy and tracky like a trials tire, but it still gives you the knob and gives you the lean angle. With a trials tire, you don't have any lean angle. So for my money, the rear, and there's no point of failure added. You only have the one possible point of failure, and that possible point of failure is the tubeless, which is protected inside this incredibly stiff tire. And there's no tire, or no air in this tire. So you practically, the only way to have a flat would be to have a flat with the tubeless, with the bicycle tire inside, which is really, really, really hard to do. It would be really, really hard to do. This tire on the 525, it's run, I don't know how many miles. The average race is going to be in the ballpark of 40 to 50 miles. So just in races, I've got a lot of time on this tire. But it's also taken me to Westpoint and several other rides, and I just came back from a 2-day ride at Westpoint where we just racked up miles in every kind of condition, from mud to fire road to good single track to red clay mud to dry clay. So this, if you can get the tubeless, run it with 0 air in the 739, you've just about got the magic traction set up. And even though this tire is really, it's pretty expensive. This tire's pretty expensive, but even though it is pretty expensive, you get your money back because the tire lasts so long. So if you buy a heavy-duty tube, you're going to pay over $20 for the heavy-duty tube. And if you're not putting in a new tube every time you mount a tire, you're crazy. It's just too much work to not do, or at least every other. So you're spending a lot of money on tubes, or you're taking huge risk if you're an off-road guy. This way, if you're doing the tubeless, the $100 is going to stay in the tire. It makes the tire really a faster change, and gives you great traction, and it increases the tire life. So I think that you're getting a lot more wear out of the tire, and you're not ripping the knobs off the tire. So there's my review of a few different tires and tire setups. There's 3 different bikes with a couple different tires and a pile of trash there that is going to make it into the dumps. Well, going to make it into the tire recycling. So there you go. And there, I've got a new one over there that I got to mount up. That's going to replace, that's the Desert 81, and it's going to replace the 739 on this bike. But I'm pretty confident I'm going to want to go back to the 739. Both of these guys love it. They think the traction's great, and we're trying to wean these off of air to see how they do when they run flat, and see what those tires. And I'll do the same thing. I'll mount that one up and wear it out, and see what happens, see if it holds the knobs up. The knob spacing is so wide, it concerns me that it's not going to be able to hold up as well as the 739. But both of them, they like the tire. They like the tubeless. They're both running the tubeless, and both of them are doing great on the tubeless with no air, or with very little air. I think they're both trying to stay in the 4 to 6 pounds range. Haven't got it all the way weaned to no air yet to see what happens. When that happens, when I start running this tire on no air, when I start running the 80 series or the 81 with no air, then give you a report on that. Right now, though, I definitely say the 739 rear is, with the tubeless in it, is just nearly the ultimate tire combo. You get the traction of a trials tire with the mud capability of a knobby, with the longevity of a DOT tire. So just and almost flat proof. You could still have a failure with the tubeless, but so far I've got, like I said, probably a couple 100 miles on that one, and no failure whatsoever. So there you go. If you got any questions, you can post them. Westpoint is one of the greatest places I've ever ridden, if not the single best place. Look it up. It's $50 for the year. You can come up, pay your $50, camp all week, and then make a trip for the next year and do the same thing, all and stay in the same year. It costs you $50 for both trips. 6,000 acres and just unbelievable. Look up the Westpoint, the Rad Dad National Enduro. You could come race the National Enduro and see what you think. The National Enduro is a great way to get into racing if you're interested in doing that. We also have a buddy race every year and a hare scramble every year. So if you want to come see the property, that would be a really cheap way to do it. You don't have to race; you can just ride it for fun. And if you do the national, you'll see lots of the superstars of the sports, and you can see a lot of the property. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed. If you have anything else, or you want me to review something else, I can do it. I plan to do a little review on Westpoint too, so watch for that.